And here we go. New voices on the board.
What's that?
I'll tell you in a minute.
The ground.
Yeah, this is crazy. This is crazy. Trying to do 15 things at one time. Yes, I know. I know. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go.
Oh,
There it is. Yeah. Absolutely. The music was playing, guys. I'm really sorry about that. I just want to welcome everybody to the Sports Porch. We are here in Pittsburgh. We are live all over the world on Facebook, Instagram,
Hello,
YouTube,
world.
X, LinkedIn. And of course, we drop the podcast right after the show.
We sure do.
On where do we do it? On the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcast, Spotify, and
don't forget YouTube.
YouTube, our new channel.
Anywhere you get your friggin' podcasts. And I want to let everybody know the internet, the new Pittsburgh internet radio station, the one that we created so magnificently, is up and running.
Radio
and
PGH.
You can stream it live right now on internet radio on Radio PGH. I just put that comment up there. I want to thank everybody for joining us on Instagram. Grace says, hello, my hometown. I miss Pittsburgh. We miss you too, Grace.
We miss you too, Grace.
But we're still here, so come and visit us.
Grace, we're right here.
Yes.
We're right here.
We are. We're
Hello.
right here. We're right here. Oh, guys, you know, what can I say? Everything is crazy right now. We're going to talk NFL as always. We're going to talk about the Steelers. We're going to talk about the Penguins and what a shit show that's been lately. And the Pirates, you know, not really yet. Not really that time. I wish we had an NBA team to talk about.
Yeah, let's bring
You know
it
what I
back
mean?
to the Steelers.
Okay, we'll bring it back to the Steelers. All right, as
Do
far
you
as
really wish you had an NBA team?
yeah, actually I do.
Yeah.
I
It would be fun.
It would be
I agree
fun,
with
yeah.
you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially like this week when there's
Right.
no sports.
That's
Mhm.
exactly right.
Zero.
So, hey, if you guys want an NBA team, drop a comment and let us know.
Hey, welcome,
drop a comment
What's
and
up,
let us
Luke?
know. Luke is in the house again. Thanks. Now, here's one thing we're going to try this week because Mark's wife, Amy May, was so kind in allowing us to invade her home in Fox Chapel last night and act like children. And she actually, I love when your wife watches football with us, Schwaber, because she actually knows stuff.
She's
Oh, yeah.
into
It's
it.
pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She
into
knows
it.
when to turn it off. Like it's
Right.
over. I just am turning it off.
Yeah.
Like we
Right.
just continue to watch it like a bunch of
Right.
adults.
Yeah, I think she said this game is over and the Lions were still up by 2 scores. So, but yeah, I want to thank her for being so gracious. And I'll tell you, Schwaber, those what are those nachos? Were those Jewish nachos?
Ooh.
Were they special Jewish
They're not
nachos?
Jewish nachos.
Well,
What the hell's wrong with you?
You created them on your own.
I created them.
Schwabini creation.
What I do is I take the ground meat and I chop it up,
Even though it's already ground.
on the stove.
Right.
Well, it's got to,
Kind of Philly cheesesteak style.
Yeah, you got to brown it. You know.
Right.
Mhm.
Then you put some garlic and some onion flakes in the meat.
Right.
And then you lay down the nachos, you put the meat on, then you go vegetarian beans.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say I saw the beans in there.
Vegetarian
The
beans on
beans were
top. You
good.
sprinkle a little bit of onion flakes, you sprinkle a little bit of cilantro, you put on a little Giant Eagle Market District mild salsa,
Yeah.
and then you do a couple layers with the nachos. Then when you're all done, you have the melting cheese
What was
Yeah,
that cheese?
that you can
I love
pour
that
on.
cheese.
It's just
It was good.
it's just a great melting cheese, and then you got to spend some coin. You got to go to Whole Foods and get the world's best guacamole to put on top.
Oh,
$10.99 for
And,
like a quarter of an
It's like
ounce.
this big.
But it wasn't the best guacamole you ever had. It's up there.
It was good. It was good. Yeah,
It was
definitely
very,
good.
very
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, and then of course you had Amy May with the sweet and sour meatballs.
Well, I would know what they taste like, except that you ate 72 of them, and
Well,
I had
You
3.
did, yep, you definitely.
yeah, my wife is still talking today
Yeah.
about how I didn't have enough food for you guys.
Yeah,
so
great.
I apologize.
There was plenty enough beef in the nachos.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
not just vegetarian.
Yeah. Well, what I want to know is
You just got the beans in there. That's all.
what is the difference between beans and vegetarian beans?
They just have a better taste to them. That's all.
Is he serious?
do say no. They do
Yeah,
say,
they say vegetarian beans,
on
yeah.
it. I
Aren't
never
all
knew
beans
what that means.
vegetarian? Aren't
Well,
all
like,
beans
like,
If
vegetarian?
they eat each other, they're really cannibal beings.
Yeah. I mean, it's like,
I think I was watching a video about that earlier.
Basically, it's like if you get like, let's say you get like the, like the Bush, like barbecued beans, right?
Yeah, they go to the
then it-
bush.
He had
then
to.
it-
Had to go to
Then
the
it-
bush.
you get like a little piece of bacon somewhere mixed in there, and I think it's just not necessary.
Okay.
Oh, right.
All right. So Amy May is chiming in. She says, we're welcome. It was fun to watch football with you too. I know a lot about football. I was raised watching the Steelers of the 70s.
Amen, Amy.
But what I did want to say, as far as Amy was concerned, is she has told us that she does not like when I interrupt us with all of these comments. So if you're watching us live right now, obviously you can drop a comment. We want everybody to comment. We're going to have a lot of fun tonight. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to pick some more strategic points at which. So usually I try to respond to your comment as soon as I see it, but if I don't, just stick with us in the show. We'll get to your comments no matter what. I am going to start with comments. There is no ham in the vegetarian.
Thus, Jewish nachos.
Yeah, but see,
Yeah.
I was right. I was right.
Unless the beef was not kosher.
DG is in the house. Stop messing with the comments, Schwaber. DG is in the house. What's up, DG? How are you? Luke says, vegetarian, you're fired. CD's in the house. The doctor is here. Beans, the magical fruit.
Oh, no, you don't want to be tooting in that house.
Yeah, well, we've got some stories. Well, I've got some stories about that for another time, maybe.
No.
All right, Steelers. We're gonna bring it back. We're gonna bring it back to the Steelers. Oh, Klein and Strategery. Laugh out loud. Yeah, thank you for that.
So
Already,
Mike
already
Tomlin
blew it.
had a end of season press conference, correct?
yeah. Well, and Art Rooney, the second.
Made some
Came on.
comments today. He's
Yeah.
tired of not having any playoff wins.
Yeah. So did Art the second
Aren't we
ease
all?
your fears? Let's go to our resident lifetime Yinzer right here, who has been very critical of the Tomlin and Rooney administration over the past couple years. Steve, did Art the second ease any of your fears? at
Well,
all?
I mean, no, he did not. But he did say some interesting things that I think we can kind of parse, which are essentially
Let's parse.
essentially what he said was,
It's a Jewish word, Mark.
are you guys okay?
Sorry, I'm just
Are you-
look at him. It's been a crazy night.
Yeah,
Christians.
yeah. Christian.
Hey, listen, this is a no holds barred show. So if you're
Yeah.
offended, just don't watch. All right, Steve.
Look,
what did
what-
Art say? What are
what-
we going to parse?
First, we're going to talk about Coach T. What he said about Coach T. He said that we still feel good about him and that, he is still the same, has the same key characteristics that he had when he first hired him, which I don't know really what that means.
He's breathing.
Yeah, that's a good characteristic to have
Right.
if you're going to be a coach.
That's a key characteristic.
And he said that, he's still the thing I think that he said that he says that he has the attention of the 20-year-olds and he keeps them engaged all season. But he did say about making a change. He said they would have made a change if they didn't think that he could still lead them to a championship, which is interesting because I don't know what characteristics he's talking about that could lead them to a championship, because he talked a lot about Kenny Pickett and how the next offensive coordinator needs to have characteristics to make Kenny Pickett a better quarterback.
I know.
And I also think that that's part of the head coach's job. So if Kenny Pickett isn't progressing, then isn't that part of Tomlin's job also? And he never addressed that, by the way. And I didn't expect him to. Probably I thought the most interesting thing, and I think you have a different opinion on this, Chris, is when he was talking about Cam and he said, I don't really want to talk about Cam because he's under contract. So he's basically saying he's under contract, but we'd like to negotiate that salary down and not have him come back in after next year, essentially. Because he said after this year, maybe next year, So basically he's signaling the Cam that this could be his last year unless he wants to restructure his contract so that he can take some of that money and move it to a second year. And then I think that would work better for the Steelers because they're freeing up some cap space and it works better for the organization. And let's face it, Cam's not worth it what he's getting paid anyway.
Not right now.
So I thought he was pretty good about that. The other thing he said, that there are further improvements coming to the stadium, that they need improvements for them to stay long term. They like what they see, but they need improvements. Now, I don't know what those improvements are. Maybe they need better boxes. I don't know, honestly, because they put a lot of money into that stadium over the last couple of years by enclosing the one end, putting the new television down at the other end and enclosing that end and adding some more seats there.
Right.
So I'm not really sure what he's talking about. I think maybe he's just posturing for a new stadium in 10 or 20 years.
Right. So let me just address the whole Cam Hayward thing. My take on the Cam Hayward conversation was more like we want this guy back. He's not going to talk, obviously, he's not going to negotiate a contract through the media. But I think his answer was kind of predicated on everything that came out when they were quoting Cam on the podcast saying, hey, I'm not going to take a pay cut.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, is he drawing a line in the sand? And I would respond to Cam by saying, look, if you leave the Steelers, you're definitely going to take a pay cut. Because I don't think anybody's going to pay him more. It's
I think they're playing the game though of
right.
Do we cut him?
Yes.
And I didn't get from what Art said today that they want to cut him.
Exactly.
And he didn't want to even go down that road by saying, I don't want to talk about this.
Yeah. And the question was actually, I did not like the way the question was posed when the question was asked. It was kind of like, are you willing to go into next year with Cam Hayward's huge salary cap hit?
Yeah.
I mean, anybody's gonna, if they're gonna really answer that question, they're gonna say, no, it's a huge salary cap hit. And of course the player's gonna say, I don't want to take a pay cut.
Yeah.
Well, there's ways they can restructure that in which he doesn't actually take a pay cut.
They're not going to negotiate that through the media. That's the dumbest thing to do. And I thought that was smart. The other thing he did mention was about Mason Rudolph. And he talked out of both sides of his mouth when he was talking about Rudolph, because what did he basically say? Mason showed that we were capable, that what kind of team we were capable of being when we had a quality player. And by the way, that was the first thing he said about the quarterback position. We need to get quality play out of our quarterback in that position going forward. And then that's when he said, he didn't say that Kenny Pickett had quality play, but he did say that Mason Rudolph did have quality play. But I think they're just okay with letting him go, because he did say we appreciate what Mason did,
and he also said they'd like to have him back.
Yeah, he did say that, but when you're saying we appreciate what Mason did, he's using Mason in the past tense, which means bye Mason, goodbye. We're appreciative of what you did, not of what he's done. There's a big difference there, and I don't know if he's just not that nuanced with his language, but I think these guys use the right language when they're trying to make signals to players about what it is they really want to do.
What do you think, Schwaber?
Well, that's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah, I know.
Well, on Cam Hayward, I mean, he's still a good player. His big problem now is staying healthy.
Yeah.
So, you don't want to spend that kind of money on a guy who's going to maybe play half the season for you.
Right.
But I think, with his relationship with the Steelers, I'm sure they can work something out where he'll come back at a lower price. It'll still be a pretty hefty price, believe me. Like,
oh yeah.
Like the Eagles, like they bring back like Fletcher Cox every year, who's not too different than like Cam Hayward, and like he comes back for like 12 million,
right?
Yeah.
Instead of 20 million.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right. And Kyle's in the house. He's on Instagram watching us. What's up, Kyle? How are you doing?
Kyle.
So how do you feel about they did ask him about the Tomlin extension, and he said the same thing. We're not gonna negotiate, Tomlin's contract here in the press.
Well, I mean, look, I think, unfortunately, no, it depends on if you like Tomlin or you don't like Tomlin, whether it's fortunately or unfortunately, right?
Yeah.
If you like Tomlin, then it's fortunately. They look, and overall, there's nothing wrong with trying to win every year, so, they see themselves, they're a playoff team right now, and they can be a playoff team again next year. So why would you make a change? That's sort of the glass is half full lens to it.
Right.
The glass is half empty is you really have to be willing to say, we're going to take a step back, and in all likelihood, unless we pull off like a Texans type season, we're not going to be in the playoffs if we're going to move on to another coach and start to rebuild. Right. So they don't want to do that. Now, me personally, I would rather my team, be under 500 and have a down year or two and get some high picks and kind of restock and kind of bring a new group of young, good players up together. But that's not what they're going to do. So I think we're kind of stuck with what we got, and you never know. I mean, look, I don't think it's a Steelers type of move, but geez, like, if they would bring in like a Kirk Cousins or somebody like that, I mean, they could contend, but they're not going to do that, because they're kind of, I think they're a little bit stuck in their own path sometimes, where look, they still want to prove that they were right about Kenny Pickett.
Well, I think they have soured a little bit.
They've soured
after
on
this
it.
year. There's no doubt about that. And mostly because of the play of Mason Rudolph in the last 3 games. The question is, are they willing to make it a real competition? Or are they going to say, we've hired an offensive coordinator to specifically work with Kenny to make him better? And the other thing that Rooney said was, it's basically Tomlin's decision. So they're not going to hire some young kid who's going to have some crazy schemes, and they should bring in a new quarterback for that position, right? They're going to bring in like an Arthur Smith who knows how to run the ball, knows how to run some schemes a little bit differently, maybe has a little bit more of a complex offense, but they've got to do something different on the offense. So I think no matter who they bring in, God, can it be worse? I just don't think
know.
It can. If it can, then you know what? It could be. If they hired that offensive coordinator from Carolina, I think it would get worse.
You never know. I'm sure there's another Matt Canada out there somewhere. So it could get worse. Right?
I guess it could, but
I would really like to see Mason Rudolph be the starter next year, and I truly believe if they let them compete equally in the preseason and in training camp, I think Mason Rudolph would win the job. He certainly has the endorsement of his teammates. You heard Deontay Johnson and Pickens saying he's our guy, and
I think Pickens also said on when they were cleaning out their lockers that Kenny is a really good quarterback, and he has confidence in him too. So I think the wide receiver is going to play both sides of that fence. They just want the ball,
right?
I'm not sure that we really got any answers out of him, to be honest with you, anything other than
they did. The only thing was Tomlin's going to be picking the offensive coordinator, and he liked this year's draft class. That was really the only truly definitive thing that he said. And he said he thought the direction of the Steelers from last year to this year was up, but he didn't say how high up. He says it's going in the right direction, which just means they made the playoffs, and last year they didn't.
So a couple comments from people here. DG says that Rudolph said that Tomlin and Omar both said they want him back, but he's got to know he's really going to be a backup to Pickett. If they pay him a fair backup salary, he might stay. CD says Tomlin needs to hire smarter creative coordinators. We know that. God forbid Arthur Smith, who does not highlight talent on the roster. And Terry's in the house. Thanks for being here. Mason, he united that team, energized them, and rallied around them. Give him a shot. The thing that I got from Rooney too is when he talked about Pickett, he talked about a progression. You see a progression. And he also referenced some other quarterbacks. He didn't, I don't think he referenced them by name, but what he referenced was the fact that, in year 2, year 3, year 4, you start to see progress. And that's what we would hope to see with Kenny. And
for some, I mean, like Josh Allen, for example, took off in his 4th year.
True.
But I think that's more the exception than the rule.
Oh, he's infinitely more talented as a quarterback than Kenny Pickett. That's easy to see. Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, even just it taking 4 years, you know what I mean? Like it didn't take CJ Stroud 4 years, took him 4 weeks.
Yeah. That's true. That's true.
The thing that's interesting about Mason and Kenny competing for it, how much do you think they got to sign Rudolph for? He's got to get like 7 or 8 million, right?
Yeah. Well, think about
that'd be double what Kenny's making next year. How can you pay that money and then let Kenny start? That doesn't make sense.
Well, here's the thing.
You know what I mean?
Well, first of all, they did pay that money to Trubisky. They paid him $10 million.
Yeah, well, he's going to get cut with Chooks right after the Super Bowl.
Right, but I mean, like before the start of this year, and the previous year. So you can have somebody who's making more. I think if I'm Mason Rudolph, the reason why I would stay is because, look, Mason Rudolph is going to be very borderline to get a starting job elsewhere. He's going to have to fight for it wherever he is.
Yeah, he'll be a backup wherever he gets signed. He's not going to be a starter unless...
Maybe not.
Well, unless maybe Baker Mayfield goes elsewhere and Tampa Bay likes it.
Or somebody maybe gets injured, or something like that.
Yeah.
But, I mean, my thought on it is he's going to have to compete no matter where he is. And if you're him, and honestly, you're looking at the first 2 years of Kenny Pickett, and you could be saying to yourself, hey, if I waited out 4 or 5 weeks, this is maybe the best place to be.
Yeah. You're right. I mean, I can see Mason staying for that reason.
Yeah.
And especially if they give him like a 3-year contract, right?
Yeah.
And then you got some stability and you could be backup quarterback or maybe even start if it's a true competition. And he knows they're bullshit at this point.
Right.
So he'll be able to decide whether or not he wants to stay for it or leave.
The difference, though, is that because he played so well at the end of this season, the pressure from the fan base is going to be enormous if Kenny Pickett doesn't get off to a good start. It's going to be enormous.
And that's the thing that we're not talking about. And it's impossible to talk about it because you don't know how he's going to play.
Right. You don't.
It's all predicated on that. But as a manager of that, you probably don't even want to go into the season with that like as a possibility because that's a management nightmare.
Well, it's bad. It's bad for Kenny
because now you're constantly you're getting asked questions every week. What's your criteria for who's going to start this week?
Mm-hmm.
And Kenny didn't have a really good game. Are you thinking about playing Mason Rudolph now?
Mm-hmm.
And that's just like as a head coach and even the offensive coordinator, how do you can't answer those questions without throwing somebody under the bus.
But see, here's the thing though with that. Like it's one thing if you've got a guy who is like a bona fide, like a top 10 pick type starting quarterback, and you don't want the crowd pulling for the veteran. So you almost have like a no backup so that, it's never called into question. But, that scenario, you might be not thinking about the playoffs. In the Steelers scenario, they're thinking playoffs. They're thinking we want to win a playoff game.
Right.
So you kind of have to have a good quarterback as a backup because they're certainly not certain on Kenny Pickett, no matter what they say.
And he gets injured every year.
Right.
Well, and I think look, the bigger issue here is after a couple years of hearing them talk about, well, the goal is just to try to make the playoffs. Now, all of a sudden you're hearing ownership say, hey, look, we got to win a playoff game.
No, he said wins. We need playoff. We need wins.
Whatever. We
It
need
was
we
floral.
need playoff wins. Well, where the hell have you been?
Well, that should be a message every year.
Exactly. And
Oh,
how
right.
are you going to win a playoff game or get wins in the playoffs when Kenny Pickett is your quarterback? And he obviously, I guess the benefit of the doubt here is that it's been a very chaotic offensive scheme situation. And he came into, a situation where he couldn't, there wasn't anything stable there. So maybe they picked the right guy, which I wanted to go down this list here. Brown from Carolina. Horrible choice.
That would be
horrible
awful.
choice.
That would be the
Mhm.
worst choice they could make.
I don't even know why they think that would be even reasonable. Where do they go from there?
They're looking at Gerard Johnson.
Yeah, he's the guy that helps CJ Stroud.
Yep, CJ Stroud. So that makes sense.
But he's not an OC.
He's not, but he could be, an up and comer. And sometimes
But Tomlin
it's
said he
finding that
wants
guy.
somebody that called plays.
Oh, he does.
Yeah,
He
Tomlin
did
has
say
said
that, but you know what? Tomlin can always change his mind.
This is true.
Yeah.
This is true. Just like we change our minds on
Yeah.
a daily basis
We're allowed to do
about
that.
how we feel about each other on this show.
Whew.
Well,
And even outside the show,
there's Arthur
Arthur Smith.
Arthur Smith.
Yeah.
Although, usually if somebody interviews and then they're not signed within 48 hours, you kind of wonder if it's going to happen or not. You know?
Well, Tomlin said he had to put together his pecking order, so I don't know if all of his pecking order has been through the fence yet.
Yeah.
Yeah. One thing I will
Always got to take
one
that
thing
road.
I will say, which I find disappointing if I'm a
It's a
Steelers
chicken play.
if I'm a Steelers fan, this is something I do find disappointing. Everybody else is doing 3 interviews a day to try to grab the best people. And it's the Steelers, through the first round of the, I don't know. It just seems like it's taken them so long to hear about interviews.
Well, maybe the Steelers want the San Francisco 49ers offensive coordinator.
That's a
think?
possibility.
You think?
Yeah,
I don't know. It's possible.
That's Shanahan calls the place.
he does.
Right. He does.
Yeah.
But
But they still might want them.
yeah,
Yeah.
he's an offensive coordinator.
Right. Who do you know who it is?
No, I don't even know his name.
I don't even feel like looking it up, to
And
be
there's
honest
that
with
other
you.
guy from Still Valley that people keep talking about. But
Yeah.
I forget his name.
Yeah. Yeah.
Honestly, it doesn't really matter. The important thing to know is Tomlin's making the call. So when it comes down, you can say, well, this is Tomlin's guy, and sink or swim with him, really, when it comes down to it.
Now
It's what they do every year.
Now here's an interesting question. So is or is not the Steelers offensive coordinator job a good job? Do you think folks would want that job? Now I'm not talking about, the quarterback coach who of course is going to take that job. And I'm not really even talking about, hey, Steelers are a great organization, I want that job. Just as far as the pieces on the team, on the offense, and that you have to work with Tomlin and his sort of strategy of run the ball, play defense kind of offense.
Yeah.
Is it an enticing position or not?
I think you could come up with reasons why it is and reasons why it isn't.
So you're saying it could be or could not be.
CD says Matt Nagy from
Interesting.
Lancaster County.
What does he do out there? Farm?
In Lancaster County, yeah, they grow tobacco and tip cows.
Interesting
so-
perspective, Chris. Tell us more.
Well, I grew up in York. I spent a little time in Lancaster. And for all of you Yinzers out there and other people, it's not Lancaster. That's if you're in England. It's Lancaster,
Are you Amish?
as if that matters. No, I am not Amish, although
He
I
could
have
grow a mean beard. Though.
I have been accused of that.
I thought I saw you going down the street in a buggy.
Yeah, you're fine.
I thought I saw him shoveling the what behind.
Boy.
Shoveling the shit.
Yeah.
No, he does that here. No, Mark's point is actually an excellent point, which is who wants to be offensive coordinator for the Steelers? The bottom line on that is nobody wants to be offensive coordinator for the Steelers.
I think you're right. I think you're right.
Except if they have the philosophy of run first and then pass. And that's why you get all these old guys popping up like Arthur Smith,
Right.
Mhm.
because that's all they know that game, right? They understand that game. And unless Tomlin's willing to change up his defense a little bit so that it's a quick hit offense and they score more points and the defense is going to be on the field some more, that it's a disaster. The mix will be way off, and it'll actually be a lot worse next year than better.
D Wentz on Instagram says, I love this. This is where the speculation and all this crap it's great. A few weeks before the end of the year, John Gruden was at a home game of ours. He worked with Tomlin in Tampa. Could he be a candidate for OC? He is known as a QB specialist.
Yeah, I'm sure that Goodell is going to approve that.
Yeah, I was going to say he's also known as something else right now. But in all seriousness, with a guy like Gruden,
He wouldn't be allowed to send emails.
no, the shame is the shame is that all of that stuff happened. But there's a mind that I think would be good for football, a football mind that would be good for football.
Sure.
As far as the OC position,
Is he an offensive guy though?
Yeah.
well, he also created the Tampa 2 defense. He was the originator of that. So, I mean, he's got it on, but he was a great.
I don't
head
think
coach.
that was. I think that was
Dungy,
that's
wasn't it?
Dungy.
That was
yeah.
Dungy. He stole that off of
Dungy.
Did he
Coach
steal it
Knoll,
off
yeah.
Dungy?
Yeah,
No, he
just
stole it off of Knoll, really.
Yeah.
he just
It
won
all
the
comes
Super
back
Bowl
to
with it.
Pittsburgh. Yeah,
He just won the Super Bowl with it.
It
but
all
with
comes back to
Dungy's
Chuck
defense.
Knoll these days.
Yeah, let's get back to Chuck Knoll.
Hey, is Chuck Knoll available?
I think in another world, maybe in a parallel universe.
That's right. He died.
Yeah, but if you believe that all time is happening at the same time
It's flat.
concurrently, no
We're
matter
going to come
what,
back and he's
Yeah.
going to be there.
you got it.
You believe we don't die, don't you? Conspiracies.
I don't know if that's a conspiracy or a spiritual
Well,
thing.
the question is, are we really alive?
Well, it's not. Listen. You don't. Here's something that I heard today.
Supernatural.
Here's something I heard today that I do believe in.
Okay.
You don't have a soul. You are a soul. You have a body. How about that?
That means you just think too much.
How about that? Yeah.
Yeah.
Nobody's ever really accused me of that.
You
Mark.
try
Thank
to-
you.
You should have been
I
doing more
appreciate that.
graphics for our thing here.
Yeah.
Like, look
You
at
think
me. I'm intelligent.
I try. Okay, OC
Oh,
job
man.
for Pittsburgh, I think is that's a very tough call. If you say, is it a place somebody would want to go or not want to go? It's a real tough call. I think as far as Tomlin is concerned, you are going to have to conform to the idea that he is a run first, more of an old. Imagine thinking like when they hired Tomlin that even at the age of, I don't know, 53, 52, whatever he is, that you'd be calling him an old school coach, but he's more of an old school coach.
Oh
when it
yeah,
comes
he
to that.
definitely is.
You know,
yeah.
to be honest, though, I wonder.
Well, he was defense first.
You know,
Right.
if you look at the teams in the Final Four of the NFL this year,
Yeah.
all of them run the ball very well. I mean, I think running the ball is actually kind of coming back into
I
vogue
hope it
again.
is. Honestly, I
think
hope
it
is.
is.
No, it's always been, you guys are always so focused on the pass. It's always been you run the ball so that you can pass the ball. Do you understand what I mean?
Yes.
Well,
Except
Because if you pass the ball like Baltimore did yesterday, and we should get into the games yesterday.
we're going to, because we're
If you
we're
pass the
30
ball,
minutes here.
if you like they ran the ball 6 times. 6 times they gave it to a running back for Baltimore, and they got killed because there wasn't enough mix between the run and the
right.
pass.
And that's what Detroit screwed up in the second half. They had 6 runs in the second half.
Same thing. And what did San
Right.
Francisco do? They stuck with the run. Even when they were down by 3 scores, they still ran McCaffrey.
Yeah.
And even though he was getting stuffed at the line, they said it doesn't matter. We have to continue to run the ball. And you don't run it right. You get creative with it, right? And when you have CMC, you can get pretty damn
you can,
creative.
yes.
Although I would say
So
that
that's the difference. Like, you shouldn't be run all the time. You have to run to open up the pass, and the pass has to be a deep pass. So then it loosens up the run again. And then it's when you have the chance to run, when you have the chance to pass, you pass, and you can do whatever you want. And then the defense is on their heels. That's what's successful in the NFL.
Okay, so we're gonna.
Although one other thing though,
all right, go for it, Robert. Go for it.
The other side of the coin on that though is the idea that you pass the ball to get the lead and then you run the ball to win the game.
Right. But you still
You
have
know.
to be able to run the ball. right?
Sure. Yeah.
So
yeah.
you're not continue like what the Bills tried to do the past 3 years.
Mhm.
They just passed. They could never run the ball.
Mhm.
That's why I liked them this year, but they didn't get it done.
No.
Okay, so
great.
we're going to do our picks now, and I want to announce that our playoff records last week, Steve and I picked the Chiefs to win, and Mark picked the Ravens, and me and Mark picked the Lions, and Steve picked the Niners. So this is the first week that Mark was winless in the entire football season. So,
But the Grand Schwalbini has another thing coming. He saves it for the big game.
yes, that is like the weirdest looking lamp. It's like it doesn't matter.
You got it for me.
Yeah, no, DG got it.
DG got
That's
it
right.
for me.
DG
That's
got
right.
it for you.
DG.
DG.
It's
The
The
but
magic lamp.
the records are now this. At least we have a little bit of drama with this now because Mark is 8-4 and Steve is 8-4.
It comes down to one game.
So it's the Super Bowl, and I am 3-937. So
Yes.
I had a horrible year picking games.
Oh, you're really bad.
I am bad.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's because I always go opposite of you. Just 'cause I don't.
You're
like
not
you.
even
You
really.
get so
you're
far
not even really
behind,
picking.
and then you're just
You're not even really picking past week 2.
I know.
You know, you get yourself into like a 1-5 hole, and then you're like, whatever.
Yeah.
You're not picking.
Yeah, that's true. That's exactly how it is.
Instead of like
is
waiting
true.
for us to mess up.
That's exactly how it is. All right, so we're gonna do our Super Bowl picks. I want you to drop your comment for your Super.
We're doing them this week.
Super Bowl.
Yeah, let's just do them this week. I got an idea. Here's what we're gonna do.
Let's do them this week, and we can get a do-over next.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
Okay, because there'll be injury reports and
There
all
was
this stuff.
one of the defensive linemen for the Chiefs tore his ACL. The one who came out last.
Oh yeah, that
yesterday.
guy that was
He
hobbling.
did tore his
around,
ACL,
yeah.
so he's out.
Okay, so Super Bowl picks, Steve.
Well, it's really pretty simple. There is no way the NFL wants Patrick Mahomes to be 2-2 in Super Bowls. They absolutely want him to be 3-1 so they can push the narrative of the new Tom Brady.
Flags picked up.
And on top of that, when they do raise the Super Bowl trophy, Travis Kelce can take it all over the world, over the Europe, and he can get all the people
Yep.
over there say, "Look, this is the NFL. It's the trophy."
Mhm. Are you a
So
Swift?
what-
Are you a Swiftie?
And so
We already know he
so
is.
they can push the narrative of NFL in Europe through Taylor Swift. It's just brilliant marketing. So there's no way they're going to let Kansas City lose.
Well,
Correct.
so you're saying it's going to be scripted.
They all are, Chris.
Script.
Good Lord. All right.
Well, it's going to be interesting because we're going to have to go off of points because the Grand Schwalbini also sees a scripted Kansas City Chiefs victory. There are going to be some flags that are picked up and wasn't offsides,
Poof.
wasn't pass interference,
Poof.
ball was uncatchable, never called, but in the Super Bowl, yes.
Poof.
Patrick Mahomes. Oh, that's a roughing the passer. Mahomes interception. Oh no, holding on the defense. 5 yards, first down. So all that's going to happen,
I think
and
he's
it
been
will
rubbing it a little
be,
too
and it
long there.
will be the Chiefs.
Yeah, I was very distracted by the vigorous nature of your lamp rubbing.
Oh, that's a problem.
All right, so what? You picked the Chiefs?
Chiefs.
That-
The
you guys
chefs.
picked the
I
Chiefs?
the chefs. Yes.
All right, I'm going the opposite. I'm picking the Niners.
We
That-
know
that's
you
what
love
they're all about.
Purdy. You're a Purdy man anyway.
The Brock
Purdy, Hall of
love
Fame.
affair.
Hall of Fame.
The
That
love
boy
affair.
will be in the Hall of Fame. Listen, he is unflappable.
Love affair.
Unflappable. I'm telling you right now, this is the year Mahomes goes down. Brock Purdy is going to win this game. Their defense is it's just going to outplay Patrick Mahomes.
Their defense was
Yep.
so good in the first half against Detroit and Green Bay.
Yep. Taylor Swift is going to be so disappointed, and she's going to break up with Travis Kelce because, she wants a Super Bowl.
No,
She wants to write
no.
a song about the Super Bowl. Yeah, that's what's going to happen.
All right. So what's the final score, Steve? What are you going with?
Well, I don't actually think it's going to be a very high scoring game.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's going to be mid-20s.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go with just got to be a field goal in there, probably both teams. 27-24.
Wow.
It'll be close.
Wow.
It'll be close.
All right, Schwaber, give
Because
it
I swear to God,
it to me.
I had the score in my head.
27-24.
26-24.
Holy cow.
Woo!
So
I do. We agree on this. I think
Yes.
it's going to be a really close game.
Yep.
But I don't think it's going to be as close as because I think what happens is San Francisco scores late. They have a chance to go down the field, but they just can't get it.
I think what's going to happen is the old classic. The refs come in again, and you know what? Oops.
You got to hold it up a little higher if you want everybody to see it.
Oops, that's a personal foul. So now the whole 2 minutes after the 2-minute warning are kneel downs for Pat Mahomes.
Patty Mahomes.
Okay, and I think it's going to be
2, no good.
Can I get my points in here? 35-21 Niners. I think it's going to be not even close.
Woo!
There you go.
I think if the Niners are going to win, I think that's the right score.
There you go.
They're going to have to score a lot of points.
There you go.
The Chiefs.
There you go.
To beat them.
All right. Thanks for watching, everybody. We've still got another segment to go here, but I want to remind you, you're watching the Sports Porch on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Instagram now. And obviously, we drop the podcast right after the show on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcast, Spotify, and anywhere you get your freaking podcasts. Amy May says she's seen enough of the lamp.
She's had enough lamp.
Yep,
for
she's
tonight.
tired of your rubbing.
Sorry.
Put your lamp away.
Yeah,
Sorry, my lady.
Put that lamp down. Okay. Podcast. We drop it right after the show, guys. You can always visit us at theporcheslive.com. That is our website. And this is going to be a quick one, I guess, because as you all know, if you're a Penguins fan, we do have Hockey Jesus in the house. There he is, right there, right across from me. Hockey Jesus preaches on the podcast on the iHeartRadio app or anywhere you get your podcasts after every single Penguins game. You can tune in and listen to how he feels about the Penguins' latest debacle or win or overtime loss or whatever you don't want to count it. So, Hockey Jesus, preach away. Not a whole lot now because we got the All-Star break. They're not playing until Tuesday of next week, right?
That's true. They don't play until February 6th. They have a home game against Winnipeg that night.
The Jets are
that's
in
like
town.
I think that's a week from tonight. It's a long ways away.
It's Tuesday, so it's a little
It's a week.
Basically a week. Yeah.
A week from tomorrow. There's been a lot of emotion in this past week. I mean, they could have literally have gone 0-4 in their last 4 games. And I think that would have opened the floodgates to trading Jake Gensel. I still don't know if they will trade him or not. Honestly, I really don't know. But that overtime loss to Florida, and then in the shootout, really, and then the overtime win against Montreal, so they get 3 out of 4 points in their last 2 games, may have saved it. I'll put it this way: if they're going to sign Jake Gensel, it'll be this week. They'll make an announcement this week that they signed Jake to a long-term contract. It'll probably, if they sign him this week, my guess is it'll be between $8 and $9.5 million a year. It'll be in that neighborhood, which is a little bit of a discount because supposedly his market is the Nylander market, and he got $10 million a year for like 6 years.
Question: should they sign Jake Gensel?
Well, this is the big question. It depends on how you feel about the Pittsburgh Penguins today. If you think that they're a playoff team this year and can be a playoff team again next year, yes, they absolutely should sign him. If you don't think that the Pittsburgh Penguins can make the playoffs this year and have absolutely no chance next year, they should absolutely trade him. Because the reality is they only really have the reality is the window's probably already closed to another Stanley Cup with this group, right? So the question remains, can they at least make the playoffs and do okay and still continue down the path of let's watch Sid go from 21st overall in points to 20th, down the line until he gets into the top 10. And how long will Malkin hold on during that time period?
I personally,
Can they trade Malkin?
Yeah, I think I know Malkin, as far as a player goes in his production, like an average NHL player, is not having a terrible year. But for Malkin, he's having a bad year. And from what I've seen and what I've heard, I hate to say it, but I think he's done.
Well, the problem with Malkin is, and he's always been this way in his career, he has games where he can just take over the whole game, right? And then he has games where he just doesn't want to play. And lately, he's had one game like that, and then 5 or 6 games where he doesn't play.
That's what I'm saying.
And that's the problem. Like, you don't mind when he takes over a game because literally they just decimate the other team, or he's the reason they win the game. He did score the goal to tie to send that game in the Florida in overtime. But he had a horrible game. Like, the only reason he scored was because Sid, of course, who's having probably one of the best years in his career, just hit him with a blind pass, kind of like he did with Jake the other night, and Gino just buried it. And look, they took Gino off the first power play. I've been clamoring for that I think
they're listening to
10 or 15 games. Because he just won't shoot the puck. And I think they actually need to put Carlson back on the first, but there's something about the way Sid and Jake and Letang have this chemistry when they're out there that Carlson doesn't quite have yet, but he'll never get it if he's not out there. And I actually think that Carlson's a much better puck mover than Letang is. So for that reason, I think they need to put Carlson back on the first and then maybe get Letang to get some of that chemistry with Malkin on the second. I think that would work really well. And by the way, they put my guy Puustinen up there, Valeri Puustinen, only because the guy shoots the hell out of the puck. And that's all they really need. You just need a trigger guy on that power play. Somebody, when they get it, they're not stopping the puck and thinking about passing it. As soon as the puck's coming to them, they're setting up and they're getting ready for a one-time slap shot, and they get it on goal. And I think that will make the power play better. But to the Jake Gensel point, I can argue either side of it. But the way I feel about it now is I just feel that if you remove Jake from this team will not make the playoffs, and it will not be any good. And you still can't get rid of like Gino. Not that you would get rid of Letang or any of the other guys. You can't get rid of any of those guys. So now you have a less talented team,
right? And
you still have the same core that you can't do anything with. Now everybody would say, well, but you'd get some other players that would be good. But the way it is with other players to come in, it takes them a little bit of time to figure it out. So maybe they would figure it out next year, but if they didn't, they would be in a much worse position for next year.
Well, what about like a contending team that just could use a scoring boost to send Malcolm to that team, and maybe you get back some picks, and then that way it frees up money to spend on Gensel.
The problem with Malkin's contract, and literally Malkin, Rust, Sid, not that you would move Sid, Letang, those 4 guys in particular, they all have no movement clauses.
Oh, do they?
Yeah. So when they signed them, they signed at a discount so that they would get the no movement.
Well, and they've been playing together for so long, they just want to keep playing together.
Now, if they wanted to leave, and let's just say, hey, do you want to go play for GMJR over in Vancouver? They look like they could probably win the cup this year. And they said yes, then you could trade them. But they would have to agree to it first. And these guys are not going to agree to it.
Is this still like the ghost of Ron Hextall?
No.
Yeah. I don't get that feeling, but I wanted to ask that question.
Dubas got rid of all of those guys, right?
Yeah.
This is of his making. Like, bringing Carlson in maybe wasn't the right thing to do because, yes, he's a great talent, but is he the right fit on the team? And you never know that without going out and getting the guy. Right?
Yeah. Well, he's an offensive defenseman, and that's kind of what Letang is. So,
I don't know. I don't think they know how to coach him either,
right?
Because he's such a unicorn. Like, you just have to let him play, in my opinion. And I heard this actually from John Steigerwald. I think he was being interviewed by Mark Madden, and I thought it was brilliant. They should just release him. They should just let him be who he is. Like, don't think of him as a defenseman. Just always have somebody who comes in and goes to the point whenever he's got the puck, and let him go wherever he wants to go, and just protect from a 2-on-1 maybe the other way,
right?
And just say, okay, do whatever you want, because you're such a playmaker and it's not working, trying to keep you on the blue line, which is where he makes all his mistakes. And then they're going the other way 2-on-1 anyways, because he can't catch up with them.
So let him play his game.
Yeah, just
let him play his
let
game.
him go. I think if they would do that, and they would have to change their strategy around, then that's a strategy they don't want to change around, because now you always have to have a forward like, say, Drew O'Connor, who's always watching him. And instead of thinking he's getting the puck, he's thinking, okay, when is he going to make his move? So I got to go protect from the 2-on-1 the other way. It's trickier than you think. And that's the problem with the Jake Gensel thing, because if you do trade him and you get players who are good, they're not going to trade him to like Philadelphia. Let's just face it. They're not. They're going to trade him to probably Vancouver if he's going to get traded, or maybe the LA Kings. He's going to go to the West Coast.
Right.
They're going to send them probably even out of the East, to be honest with you.
They would.
So that's the only way they would do it. And I don't know. They just haven't done it. And I just don't see them doing it now.
Well, there you have it. Hockey Jesus, who preaches on the... Yeah.
Ruedel update.
Oh, sorry about that. I always forget about Ruedel. That's because who was our guy last year? Who was the guy?
Yeah, who was it?
It's
they got rid of him like mid-season.
yeah, now he's having it. Now he's doing well.
Who was it?
Shit. I can't remember. I don't really care.
Oh, yeah, Bluger, Teddy
Bluger.
Yeah. Bluger update.
Yeah,
Teddy
nobody
Bluger.
ever matches the original. Like, there'll never be another Chicolo.
There won't.
Yeah.
There'll never be another Bluger.
We need Chicolo on the podcast. If anybody out there knows Chicolo, give Chicks a call. Let's
we'd love to have Chicolo on the show.
Yeah, just so we can have Chicolo on the show.
Yeah.
Chicolo on the show.
Then we can eat what are chiclets?
Chicolo knows.
Or Chick-fil-A.
He should have his own chiclet. Chicolo's chiclets?
Chicolo's Chick-fil-A.
I don't know. Not enough to talk about anymore with football being over for the Steelers. That was Hockey Jesus preaching on the podcast right here on the Sports Porch. And if you're watching us live, thank you so much. Live on social media, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, X, and Instagram. And as you can see at the bottom of the screen, you could catch the Sports Porch podcast. We drop the show after this show, and you could get it anywhere you get your podcasts. I think we're going to bring back over the next couple weeks. We're going to bring back What Are You Watching?
Sure, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
We're going to bring back headlines that mean something.
Maybe.
Have a little fun, because we're going into what we like to call the
dead zone.
The dead zone.
The
dead zone. And I don't know if you know this. I was telling Schwaber, I think you might have assumed this. We're going to be doing the Super Bowl here this year again.
Oh, no.
So, of course, are you not going to be here?
I didn't hear that.
Why?
Oh,
I don't know if I'm ready for that. That's a big commitment.
There's
What, to come here and watch the Super Bowl?
There's going to be a lot going on.
And have free food?
Woo!
It could get a little haywire.
Yeah, but this house is dry.
Well, you can bring wet stuff. Sorry.
You wouldn't know about the wet
Do you think
stuff.
you think
I'll bring my own.
That was
I'll
not
bring
nice.
my own wet stuff.
Coming from you, that was not nice. But we're even.
Can we make some recommendations for the food?
Sure, go right ahead.
Okay. All right.
No, go right ahead right now.
I will think about it.
Oh yeah, we need to make a list.
Yeah.
Are you going to bring the famous Schwab's Jewish nachos?
No. I want to try them
great.
with the kibas.
I want.
That's
maybe
good.
I should bring them with the kibas.
Yeah.
And
Amy's not endorsing that, by the way.
Yeah.
I would like lobster this year.
All right. Well, you go catch us a few lobsters.
Anybody up in Maine got some extra lobsters?
Actually, I could go down to Woolies.
Send them down to Pittsburgh.
I could go down to Woolies there. Jeff, just like the old days, party at Chris's. Yeah.
Oh, just like the old days.
Yeah.
Hey, if you remember some of those old days, Jeff, we need to hear about it.
This is what I'm going to tell you. Okay. We all went to college together. So I can tell you right now, Jeff's old days with me and your old days with me.
Yeah.
The same.
Right.
So
if you were living the same lifestyle in high school.
Yes, I was.
And that's very sad.
Yes.
Hey, actually, it looks like Amy wants some brownies.
You thought it was fun at the time. Looking back, it's a shame.
Well, looking back, I'm having nightmares. Jeff says, yeah, right. Okay. And Amy wants Lauren's brownies, and I'm sure she will be happy to accommodate you there.
Sounds good.
Absolutely happy.
So long.
All right. Well, this was a fun one tonight, guys. And thanks for being here, everybody, on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, X, and, of course, Instagram. We have added. We're going to drop the podcast in about 15 minutes so you can catch up on it on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere you get your freaking podcasts. And remember to subscribe, leave us a review. That's it, guys.
We made it. We did it.
We made it. One more show under our belt.
122.
There you go. Thanks,
If you're
Jeff. You have a good
hungry-
week. Thanks, Amy. Great show.
If you're
Sledding
hungry,
up at the
get
country
yourself
club.
some
Yeah, I remember that.
cornbread.
Yeah.
Get yourself some cornbread.
All right, guys. That's it. I am your technical director, and
David.
I am out. Thank you, DG.